Welcome to Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. I'm Lawrence Pugliese, and this is our first episode of 2024. I'm very happy to be with you, and I'm very happy to have with us here in the studio of Electric City Television, Jay Luke. We're going to talk about his art, his background, what inspires him, and we'll see where that takes us. We're going to get going with an original tune of his titled Words. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Luke.
When we make excuses for what we know we can do, everything that's false ends up coming true. We let down those and held lying on the floor, lying to ourselves with the things we choose to ignore. The time will come when we have to face who we are, and it's always too late when it's time to write your memoir. The power to hurt, the power to heal, the power to kill, the power to steal, the power to live, the power to kill. For such minor relief, words can be such a field. Will they meet you with affection or leave you with rejection? They can take away or they can save the day. They're just begging to be heard. That's the power in your words. Lies travel so much faster to outrun the truth. In your old age, you'll always long for your youth. Good or bad, you know it's all in your head. You can follow all the rules and still you'll end up dead. You're homesick for a home you've never had, when comfort in your misery doesn't seem so bad. The power to hurt, the power to heal, the power to kill, the power to steal, the power to live, the power to kill. For such minor relief, words can be such a thief. Will they meet you with affection or leave you with rejection? They can take away or they can save the day. They're just begging to be heard. That's the power in your words.
Woo, yeah. Jay Luke, ladies and gentlemen, here on Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes with yours truly, Lawrence Pugliese. That was a great performance, Jay. I really enjoyed it. Words, that song, I'm sitting here and I don't know if the camera got me, I was jamming to it. It felt punk to me. Is that a big influence on you?
Yes. I was trying to figure out a way to say it. When you're writing songs, a lot of times for me, it's sort of like assembling a jigsaw puzzle. You kind of, for me anyways, I get a good line or a lyric, and sometimes I can't get the whole song, so I don't like to force things. So I'll have a little scrap of paper that has this lyric, and then, later on something will come up, and I have all of these weird pieces, and I put them all together and make some cohesion of it, and then, you kind of grab your guitar and try to work out a rhythm to it, and under the big umbrella of genre or whatever, I know everybody's obsessed with that. I would say I'm a rock artist, but I like to play punk and progressive and all different kinds of sounds that you might not expect somebody to play on one album. Like I was always influenced by artists who, if you buy an album, one song is completely different than the next, and they were all like, what was this artist thinking kind of thing. And I love that. So it was very, inspiring for me.
An eclectic thing.
Yes.
Sort of. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. And You're from northeastern Pennsylvania, born and raised here. That's
Mm-hmm.
where we're set, ECTV in Scranton.
Yep.
Now, people could be watching this anywhere. So I want to give them a sense of how we look at things here geographically. You're from up the line,
Yes.
which means the main line is Main Street that goes up, I think, as far as Forest City down into Luzerne County. It's a pretty long line.
Yeah.
You're up the line
I'm up the
from
line.
Scranton, I suppose. And what town is that?
Troop, actually.
Troop. So you went to public school up there, or
Catholic school, actually, my whole life.
Catholic school?
Yeah.
So the Catholicism definitely had an effect on you.
It's. I guess you'd say it brings out a sense of rebellion of some sort. You go. You learn all of these things as you grow up, and you lose interest in it after it's so beaten into your head, kind of.
And you're an artist in your soul, in your mind, and you're gonna rebel against that. You have no choice.
Of course.
I think.
Yeah.
I have that in me as well. I have that same experience. I know what you're talking about. So the years since high school, you continued pursuing your passion. I guess, in a way, you're not doing it to make money, I'm sure.
It's very hard to do that these days. We do make money, but the days of Ferraris and big time record deals are way long past, unfortunately. But I think if you're an artist at this point, you have to do it because you love it, or else you'll be very disappointed.
Exactly.
There's a big, I think a big danger and misconception of younger artists now that are. I use artists as a loose term, where you live in a world where America's Got Talent, or what's the other one? American Idol.
Yeah.
Where
all
these
that stuff.
contests, it should never be contest oriented. You have to kind of go through being heckled and all of these things. These poor kids, they wait in line and they're, somebody doesn't like them and they'll have a total tantrum that might take their life or something. It's crazy. You need to know how to handle these kind of things, and go through it all. So.
Well put. I was talking to an actor one time. He's an older actor, and he was saying before there was social media where he can be captured instantly doing something, actors had the opportunity to test things out and not have them, something that they were working on, then shown when it wasn't ready yet to a bunch of people and then be misunderstood or scoffed at. And now, so people will be more tentative and actually exploring things because they're afraid of that happening to themselves, which diminishes the art.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about in a way.
Yeah.
You go through that stuff.
It's almost like a good, for instance, is, you'll be playing a show and, it's not uncommon where somebody's camera's in your face, and it's not that you're performing differently, seeing that, but it is kind of awkward, where people are putting it live on the internet and it's like, oh, geez, what if I mess up a little, and then this part of your brain kicks in where it's like, it's almost like how I would relate to it is if you're playing guitar, if you're a guitar player, and you look at your fingers, sometimes you get totally thrown off. So sometimes you got to go by feeling. And I think when you see somebody's camera in front of your face, you kind of think that same thing a little bit, like, oh, geez, now I'm all self-conscious of it. But, you got to get through it as an artist or you'll never survive, unfortunately.
Right. And how do you get through that when it happens?
I just try not to think about it, as best I can. Or if I do think about it, just, don't let it, wear me to the ground.
And when I think about any artist, I often wonder what their themes are. What do you find yourself coming back to again and again when you're writing a song?
Well, I will be honest with you. I just put out a new album in October, and every album or song, for that matter, is very personal to me. It's like a snapshot in any particular time in my life where I'll instantly remember what I was doing. And pre-pandemic, it was right before the pandemic, I was doing so many shows that I wrote an album called Alone in the Crowd, And if it weren't for the pandemic kind of shutting the world down, I was going to kind of take a little bit of a break, because I was doing so many shows, and sometimes you just get into this, I guess, a rut where you're really alone in a crowd, where it's like, I don't have any connection to these people, and it's hard, you know, not putting on an act or whatever, but like just getting through the night, you know what I mean? So I got through all of that, and the album came out pretty cool. But this most recent album I put out, called Me and My Demons, is the most personal thing I've ever done. It's like, I showed a real vulnerable side of being an artist, where I consider the pressure and the stress of working a full-time job and then going right to a rehearsal or a show. And, you know, you get up so early in the morning, and it might not be till 3 in the morning when you come home from a show. And then from 3 in the morning to like 7, where you should be sleeping, you can't, because your brain's just constantly going. So I call that Me and My Demons. You know, it's like sitting with me and my demons. And that was this theme that I was like, oh, you know, I built on this, what it's like to be this kind of person, an artist, and facing all of these adversities. And I didn't want it to be such a negative thing. So at the very end, I have this song called All We've Got Is Now, which I'll play later on. That kind of put it back into perspective. Like, you know, this is why you're doing this, and, you know, it's not all bad.
Excellent, excellent. And whoa, that was pretty insightful. I'm thinking about how folks that look at musicians in particular, artists generally, when you're talking about your demons, you're talking about going through a lot of this stuff, oftentimes feeling alone and vulnerable, because you're sharing.
100%.
You know, a lot of folks think, oh yeah, then that person's probably, you know, drinking a lot, doing other kinds of drugs, what have you. Mm-hmm. Have you had to deal with any of that over the years, even directly or with yourself, and maybe with other folks you worked with? How was it?
As a musician, you spend so much time around that kind of you know, environment, and unless you're strong-willed, it can take you down very much, and it sucks to see that. And you know, you're in an environment where so many people might rely on that as a crutch, or you know, lean on it to get over stage fright, or any number of things. So, you know, if it doesn't affect your performance, and you're not, you know, not ruining people's lives. You know, if you're in a band, all the power to you or whatever. But I mean, I don't want to be that sort of person that ever relies on anything like that. But the dangers of it are everywhere. And it's not even only in music, it's in, you know, everyday life. You know, a lot of people can't cope with a lot of things. And, you know, I think another part of the theme of what I was doing is like kind of relating to seeing the dangers of that, you know, and how to avoid that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And if people wanted to find your music, you know, before I forget, where could they go to find it?
Well, I guess all the streaming platforms everybody's all fond of, the Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Anybody watching in Europe, Deezer. Deezer is like the overseas version of Spotify, I suppose. But anywhere online, you just type my name in, Jay Luke, and you'll find something.
Luke.
Luke.
Jay. Now, your community, your family life, how has that affected, informed who you are as a person and as an artist?
Wow, that's a good question. I was raised by, the music was like always a huge thing in my life. My father was a massive fan of the band Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And my mom was a Rolling Stones fan. So I was in the middle of these two very influential parts of, you know, rock and roll. And somewhere in between, the birth of music television came out. And that was like what I would say was me discovering music on my own, besides for what I was, you know, kind of force-fed, not entirely, but, and I fell in love with, you know, rock and roll as a kid. And, you know, I often say that, like, you know, if my parents took off to Arizona and just left me there in front of the television, I don't think I would have moved. I just absorbed it all like a sponge. So that, you know, that part of my life was just, I was taking all of this stuff in, so much so that, like, even now, I know we all have Google and everything to look stuff up, but prior to Google really taking over, everyone would call me all at weird hours and say, who's that one guitar player? And I have all this useless knowledge that now it's kind of like a party trick. But yeah, those early days were very influential for me. While I was not even really playing an instrument, just like learning about music and subtly, you know, taking in how songs were written and things like that. And, you know, years later it would come out in different ways. But the family life thing, yeah, it affected almost everything I do, like most artists, you know.
Definitely. And when you were younger, you know, a teenager, your adolescent years and such, again, I'm playing off stereotypes. Did you feel it was hard to connect with your peers? Did you feel misunderstood and all that kind of thing? Or it was all a bunch of BS and they were all a bunch of, you know, followers, anything like that? Or was it pretty normal?
I would say it's a mix of both. As a teenager, no one else that I was hanging out with played music, strangely enough. So that part was certainly misunderstood. So I would be in my room constantly for hours a day, just playing music. And the people I hung out with, I couldn't get them to play. And I remember a really, really funny story. There's a guy who I'm in a band with called the Stones of Atlantis now. And he's a drummer, and someone hooked us up, and they said, you know, this guy plays music. We should hang out with him. I'm like, yes, we should. And it was the first time I'd ever played with anyone else, and I had to be about 17, 18, I can't recall the year. But in my head, I don't even know where I was going, but I was like, I need to learn how to play the first 4 Van Halen albums, or this guy's never going to want to play with me. And it was, speaking of misconception, I show up, and I'm like, let's do it. Whatever Van Halen song you want to play. And he's like, I don't know anything by Van Halen. I'm like, damn
You
it.
just went based on the way he looked?
Right. Well, not even that. I just thought, like, you know, I could show him I'll play the hardest thing I could play on guitar. And that was a real shock for me. So I was like, wow, so how does this work? You know? And it was such a clash of different styles of music. And it really made me appreciate a lot of things that just because maybe I didn't like it at the time or wasn't into it. Like that's something I've carried through my whole life. Like just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not your taste. You know?
Exactly. And sometimes you gotta give it a chance.
That's right. Yeah.
Excellent. So you're now a person who's living life as an adult. You know, you have a day job, as you alluded to, but your art is something that you have to do. How do you deal with that as an adult? You know, soon you look young to me, you know, but you'll be in your middle age before you know it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Do you start ever thinking, well, I got to stop this, or that's not even a thought in your head?
That's funny because you know, I get in a lot of conversations with other artists and stuff about this kind of topic, and I don't think stopping is something you ever really think of. And a lot of times, sometimes people don't even think of living long. Like before we started here today, we were talking about the Rolling Stones and what are the odds that any of them thought that they'd be 80 years old, not even playing music, just 80 years old? Who thought they'd ever live that long?
I've read interviews where they didn't think they'd live past their 30s.
So all they honestly know how to do is play music. I mean, like when you really, I don't want to, you know, say that in such a general term, but like by and large, that's their life. And sometimes people can't quite perform as much or as well. And that is sometimes, you know, something that turns a lot of people off. But the
because of their age, you mean?
Yeah, well, not even that. It's like you know, if, you know, for instance, the song "Time Is on My Side," you know, you're 8 years old singing that, and it has a whole different meaning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Mick Jagger still sounds the way he kind of sounded. I mean, he might not sound exactly the same way, but a lot of these other artists who, you know, are doing death-defying vocals, they can't do it when you know you hit like a certain age, and it's like, oh, now how are you going to do that? So you have to know your limitations.
Right.
And sometimes people still know the limitations and they still cross that line, and it's like, ooh, that's a tough one.
Well, it's like a pitcher in baseball. When you get older, you can't rely on the speed. You got to get more crafty, right? You got
That's
to
right.
adjust your approach.
100%.
Someone like Robert Plant, you mentioned Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
he's doing albums with Alison Krauss.
Yep.
Still has a great voice, but he's not
Right.
going to be doing those screams.
That's
Led Zeppelin.
exactly it.
He's still a great artist.
You know, if they were to ever try to go on tour as Led Zeppelin, which won't happen, but that would be very difficult for him and probably impossible.
Probably.
So,
It'd have to be a different approach.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Jay Luke here at the table, Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. I'm Lawrence. It's so nice to have you with us. Happy 2024, first episode of the year. And Jay's going to play a song for us again in a little bit, but I have a couple more questions. Now, your art we talked about. We talked about your background. We talked about some of the stereotypes that come along with being a musician. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the viewers? Maybe the younger folks, maybe the folks who misunderstand why someone would want to be an artist, a musician. I know myself. I come around people. I always have since I was a kid.
Right.
Like, why do you waste your time with that?
Right.
You're not going to make any money. Why do you grow up? Why do you know?
Right.
And I don't believe any of that. I think that's stymieing, narrow-minded, all of that.
100%.
But there might be someone on their couch who has that mentality. Like, look at these guys talking about her. Why don't they go ahead and give up on that childish stuff or what have you? What do you say to that mentality?
You have to believe in yourself. A lot of people do things to please other people, or I'll do this because maybe somebody will like this, and that's a dangerous way to think. I think also, for me as an artist, I do a lot of things. In a way, it's therapeutic. Where I'll write a song, or like the most recent album I did. It's almost like you're listening to a therapy session, and it's just a great way to get things off your chest or vent out, and it's almost like the canary in a coal mine, So you're kind of letting the listener know the dangers of this, or what to look out for. But if you try to please other people, you'll find yourself extremely unhappy, because the person who you please least is yourself. And you always have to believe in yourself enough to do what you're doing and show your vulnerable side, because the reward in that is when someone likes it, it's not because you're trying to please them, it's because they just genuinely relate to what you're saying. And I've found, luckily, my audience, sometimes it's largely overseas in places where they don't always speak English, and it's so bizarre to me. Like, the most recent album had gotten press on like every continent but Antarctica, and that's mind-boggling to me. As reverting back to that kid who's sitting in his room alone, things can happen. I mean, you might not make $1 million now, but you still can reach people, and that's just as well. It's
priceless.
Yeah, that's where the money's at.
Yeah.
The real wealth is that, I think. So.
Well said, Jay. Well said. Now, I mentioned a list of some of the people you've shared the stage with, whether opening up for, maybe hopping on during a tune or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any nice stories you'd like to share with some of the big time artists you've crossed paths with? I mean, you're a big time artist as well, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was a good, for instance, about figuring out about rock and roll on my own when I was a kid, I'd say I was like 87 or 88 or something like that. A band called Guns N' Roses came out, and they were like a stick of dynamite in the world. Like, I'd never heard anything like that in my young years at that time. And they were just so dangerous and real. And I was like, wow, this band is unbelievable. So I really looked up to them. And I think it was around 2007 or 8, I got a chance to open up for the bass player of that band. And they were the biggest band in the world at one time.
I'm talking about Duff.
Yeah, Duff McKagan. And you never know what to expect with that kind of thing. Meeting your hero. Is it going to be cool or bad? Because a lot of the people you mentioned, I could tell you bad stories as well. But for a guy who was in the biggest band in the world, he was the nicest guy, most down to earth, had time for everybody, and just very, very cool. It was really a humbling thing, because you learn a lot from these artists you look up to, and sometimes the one thing that is so important to learn is how to treat people that are your fans or friends or whatnot. Because some of these people get a God complex, and it's like, whoa, you should calm down here. You're not really, nobody's that, should act like that. So yeah, it was really cool to be in that circle there and see how he handled all of what he does, like for being in a big band and not being a real jerk,
Yeah.
So
There's a great documentary. You ever see
yes,
that?
yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a very inspiring guy. He overcame so much.
He really did. He really did. And how about any moments that you recall being on stage with some of the musicians you really hold in high regard and jamming with them? You have any moments that you recall where it was like, wow, this is amazing?
You know what? Pinpointing anything is really difficult. Sometimes it just seems like a big blur, and I might think about it later on. But I just feel fortunate. Another thing I should have said earlier about if anybody's wondering what to do, never give up. It's just like anything. Like when I'm doing a drawing, the first thing someone will say is, "Oh, wow, that's really good. I wish I could draw. I can't even draw a straight line." Like nobody can draw a straight line. I mean, like if you can, good for you, but just stick with whatever you're doing and you'll get there. So like just playing music, never give up. Never give up. And your biggest critics will be your family and your friends. Telling you, like, when are you going to do this? Well, just listen to your heart and not your everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I know what you mean. I do. As you said earlier, if you're spending so much time trying to please everyone else, that's a recipe for unhappiness.
Sure is.
And you won't grow.
No, not at all.
As an individual.
And it shows. I mean,
you get resentful, you get miserable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the demons we deal with.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. Well, you're a cool guy, Jay. You are. I could see it, man. You're wise, and you're earnest, and those are important qualities as far as I'm concerned. Are you planning any sort of road trip?
I think I got about 20 shows planned for this year already, and adding in more as I go. But usually my weekend is always at least one show, whether near or far. And I often would play in somebody's closet if I had to, because that's another very important thing. You learn to appreciate the audience and vice versa. I think and the more you play, the better you get, and it's important to know how to connect with people. And I think over the years, I've been playing since 2003. So many times people will come up to you and say, "Hey, I remember you from so-and-so," and it's very difficult to remember everything. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So you kind of have to, take the account that they give you sometimes and be like, "Oh yeah, right."
Yeah.
But it's really cool though that you do something for so long, and a lot of people attach memories and feelings. And I saw a documentary, I think it was on the band Oasis, 1990s band, where they said this quote. It was such a great quote, like you could do so many things as an artist, but the one thing that you can't ever take or change is the way you made someone feel. And it showed like this massive audience they had, and I was like, whoa, what a great, great, great quote. And I love that because, as an artist, you really believe it,
Oh yeah, for sure. And you got me thinking, when you're out and about and you're performing and people get into your stuff, have you had experiences where people get a little too into you?
Sure, I think we've all been there. And you know what? You don't want to, be abrasive or whatever, but that was sort of the genesis of that alone in the crowd kind of thing, where it's like, sometimes the most free I ever feel is when I'm playing. And sometimes the most trapped I ever feel is when I take a break. Where it's like you just want to go and hang out by yourself, and you get swarmed by piranhas, and it's like, hey, I know this and all this and that. And you got to take the good with the bad on that. And but yeah, sometimes people do get a little crazy, but nothing I'd go to the authorities about so far.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Right.
So when When I talk to artists at the table, I always ask this question. This will be the question we'll end this conversation with, then we'll have another performance with Jay Luke.
Sure.
How important, I mean, you kind of touched on this, but let's focus on it specifically. How important do you think art is in society for we human beings?
I think it is, the most important thing. It's, you know how if bees cease to exist, a lot of other things would stop existing. And I think artists are the same thing. It's I said earlier, like a canary in the coal mine sort of thing. We're good at, giving people warning signs and really letting people know what's going on where a lot of people might not know. And, you relate all of these other things, tell stories, and certain people really need that or might not know they need that. And the greatest thing as an artist, I think, is when someone tells you, wow, that song really got me through a hard time. Or I know even myself, when I've met certain artists, when I've said that, you could just see it in the artist's eye. Thank you, like that genuine feeling. And I think that is probably the single most important thing for me as an artist is when someone says that, that you have somewhat of a success somewhere where what you feel or felt, someone tells you, I felt that, and they might feel it in a different way or a different reason or whatever, but like critics are almost always wrong. And lately, for the new album, when they do a piece, they almost were feeling it too. So I think as I'm going, I'm maybe getting better at, being descriptive.
Excellent. Well, you were very, very descriptive here at the table with me, Jay. It was a pleasure meeting you. Well, we met before, but pleasure reacquainting, because it's been years.
Yeah, it has.
We go back to the bog back.
Maybe 20 years.
Yeah, might have been. Are you willing to do another song for us?
Yeah, let's do it.
He's going to perform for us All We've Got Is Now, right?
That's it.
And don't forget your mic on your lapel there.
All right.
Thank you, folks, for tuning in to Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes here at Electric City Television. Again, I'm Lawrence Pugliese. We're going to fade out with Jay's tune. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for watching the program. Look for us on TV and look for us on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel, ECTV. There's also an archive you can search through. Mark is working on that for our show and other shows as well. And if you'd like to listen to my radio show, I'll take an opportunity to plug that. I have a radio show on Radio Free Brooklyn every Friday at 10 p.m. called Troubadours and Rock On Tours. You can listen to that too. But either way, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you in northeastern Pennsylvania and beyond via Stories, Wisdom, and Recipes. Without further ado, this episode's guest, our good friend Jay Luke.
Why put off today what you can put off forever? Turn your back on the truth in your chase for pleasure. The mirror's reflection will show you the proof of your wasted time and your wasted youth. You follow others but ignore yourself, while the best things in life fall off the shelf. Die with that scar. All we've got is now. You can light a million candles from a single flame, try to share the joy and not the blame. Suffering is born when we ignore what's tough. Inventing tragedies only steals the love. Life's a lie, we tell ourselves to feel free. Ignorance is vicious, how we want it to be. The mountains on your back you're meant to climb. The problem is that we think there's time. Nothing never goes away until we learn the lesson. It's the simple things. If you just pay attention, forget the years that have forgotten you. If you die without scars, there's no breakthrough. Don't let them dim your light, 'cause it blinds the rise. Don't let them steal the sunset right out of your sky. Yesterday and tomorrow are just words anyhow. Time doesn't exist. All we've got is now.
On behalf of Chris and Mark and myself, Lawrence, until next time.